What single moment killed off an entire industry? In the United States, railroads killed the canal business. Canal companies knew it was coming and tried to stop the railroads at every turn. That's the most dangerous place to stop them. A rare, incredibly valuable, more than gold, metal was made nearly completely worthless by the invention of the Hall-Héroult process in 1886. That metal was aluminum. The two men invented a process that used electrodes in a hot slurry to break apart the compounds containing the metal and form alumina. That could then be made into metallic aluminum. Metallic aluminum gathers on the cathode. The Washington Monument, completed in 1884, has a 100-ounce aluminum tip which was displayed at Tiffany's before installation because it was such a novelty at the time. The invention of the refrigerator. At the time, transporting ice was the most profitable journey in the world, second in volume only to the silver trade from South America. Eventually, in the far future, transporting ice will once again be the most profitable journey, as space stations will need water and oxygen to keep everyone alive. Up until the assassination of Colombia's Minister of Justice Rodrigo Lara Bonilla in 1984 by orders of Pablo Escobar, both the Medellin and Cali cartels could traffic sea with almost zero control by the Colombian authorities. I was in awe when this happened on Narcos. Could not believe they did something so brazen. But then it only got worse. Chile had lots of saltpeter mines. They are all abandoned now because of the creation of synthetic saltpeter by Germany in 1909. This is a good one. Those saltpeter mines were a huge deal before this happened. Luckily, Chile had a shitload of other minerals to transition their economy to. Opening of Panama Canal and other notable canals immediately ended entire strings of industries built upon now obsolete shipping lanes. Oh wow, I never considered this. That must have been a huge hit to the industries along the South American coast. I reckon it was similar with the Suez Canal. The cotton gin. In 1793, precisely at 11:24 am on a Tuesday in July, Eli Whitney killed the entire manual cotton separation game with a cotton gin. Conversely, he saved slavery in the American South. Beavis and Butthead killed the band Winger. Within weeks of the first episode featuring the nerdy Stewart character wearing a Winger t-shirt, the band cancelled their arena tour and their record sales plummeted. The Honda CB750. It destroyed the British motorcycle industry overnight and was the head of that tsunami that eventually destroyed the British motor industry. From the largest motorcycle and second largest car industry in the world to a rump today. What is the largest British-owned car company today? Morgan. A car largely made of wood. My dad has a CB750. First bike I learned to ride on the street. Transitioning from dirt. It was in 1982. This was in 2002. You just pull the bike out of the shed, put gas in it, and it runs. Great bike. Glad he still has it. Will eventually get it to my garage. Electric and gas lighting saved the whales. Over 100 years ago they were near extinction because whale blubber was used to light street lights. Electric and gas lights came in and almost overnight whales weren't needed in their numbers for their blubber and they were saved. Fiberglass completely changed the boating industry. It drastically slowed the deforestation of exotic hardwoods, changed the designs and performance of boats, changed from skilled woodworkers to more of assembly line setup. This reminds me about the Spanish Armada back in 1580s that cleared several dozen hectares, if not close to 100 from both sides of the conflict of oak and other trees, completely decimating entire ecological regions. There's those pictures from like 1910 of New York where the whole street is just horse-drawn carriages, then pictures from 1920 where it's just cars. Ford Model T affordable motorcars killed off the horse industry very quickly. Weird rich women are keeping it alive. Hindenburg killed the blimp and airship industry in the cradle. It could have been a good industry, but the fact that it was caught on film and was the first disaster to be caught on film just killed everyone's enthusiasm for airships. 13 hours later edit. Okay, I get it, the industry was dying anyway, but Hindenburg was very much the final nail in the coffin for people of the time as they could see the disaster and hear the reactions. I read somewhere that the Empire State Building was designed to be a disembarkment station for airships. Cell phones causes the decline in home phones. To this day I only know one person with a house phone and it's only for show. Everyone has their own phone now, even young kids. An incoming Australian gov killed off high-speed internet. Was originally planned for fibre to the house building for every house building. Incoming gov, LNP, changed that to a mix of technologies and now industries are struggling and the populace are hamstrung with terrible infrastructure. Dang IT Australia. The diesel emission scandal has almost killed the diesel for small cars and motorsport applications. 11-figure fines. The loss of diesel as a more efficient and environmentally friendly choice, and it resulted a bunch of manufacturers, mostly within the VAG group, Audi and Porsche most notably, completely dumping their diesel development programs overnight. UFC. It basically slowed down all traditional martial arts dojos like karate, taekwondo, kung fu, jeet kune do, etc. Until this day, UFC's first event made a huge impact overnight to all martial artists and their markets around the globe. It showed how ineffective the majority of martial arts styles in an actual fight or a cross-discipline tournament. The first event was rather a collection of bar brawls when people expected blood sport type of fights. Less popular disciplines at that time such as Brazilian Jiu-Jitsu, Muay Thai, Sambo, shoot fighting and judo emerged and suddenly went mainstream since it was proven to work in an MMA style fight. I remember the first UFC PPV. I was raised by a boxer and boxing was big in my house, so we were always watching fights. They marketed this as the next wave in combat sports. No rules. One long butt round. No weight classes. Just two men fighting. It was nuts. A lot of it was sloppy and savage, then they started regulating it and made it much more legit. The manufacturing fiasco where Jalisco brand Mexican style cheese was mistakenly made from unpasteurized milk taken from cows not farmed to produce raw milk, that killed a dozen or so people, annihilated the raw milk sector of California. Based Altadena Dairy and nearly bankrupted Altadena founder, Mr. Stuve, who spent a fortune trying to convince government officials that raw milk produced properly was indeed safe and healthier for humans to drink. That's one big sentence. As brilliantly described on the podcast The Butterfly Effect by John Ronson, the moment a German tech entrepreneur, Fabian Thielmann, bought the company behind Pornhub and other adult sites, changing the shape of the entire pea industry. Can you link that? Sound really interesting. Seth Petruzzelli killed an entire fight organization when he knocked out Kimbo Slice with one punch. Elite XC was an up-and-coming MMA promotion that put all its eggs in one basket. They had a deal on CBS which was huge at the time because even the UFC didn't have fights airing on a big network. They were still airing fights on Spike TV. The people running Elite XC decided to run a ton of promotions around Kimbo being the next great MMA star. They had Gina Carano fighting on the same card and still went with focusing most of their attention to Kimbo. When Ken Shamrock, Kimbo's original opponent for that night, got injured, they replaced him Seth. Seth had much more MMA experience than Kimbo. The fight started, then ended. Kimbo was laid out on the canvas in only 14 seconds. Their star just got knocked out from one shot. That was the last show Elite XC put on. Elite XC knew Kimbo was a limited fighter and put all their eggs in his basket anyway. They told Petruzzelli to avoid grappling with Slice even though that was Petruzzelli's specialty. 14 seconds later we learned just how limited Kimbo really was. You can say the modern smartphone killed off many industries at once. GPS, MP3, affordable point-and-shoot cameras, calculators, etc. Now it's steering towards killing off the 3.5mm headphone jack standard in favor of Bluetooth. I really hate this because I love the headphone jack. I bought two different Bluetooth headphones and they can never sync with my Samsung Galaxy 8, so it's just a waste of time and money for me. The internet and MP3 files had completely destroyed the previous music industry model. It also took down a lot of record labels. Fun fact. Today the vast majority of labels are owned by either Warner Brothers, Sony, or Universal. The Surgeon General's 1964 report on smoking is generally seen as the cause of the 50+ year decline in per capita cigarette consumption that continues to this day. This reminds me of that Mad Men storyline, which was just so good. E.T. for the Atari almost killed the video game industry in the West. Atari lost so much money on the game, mostly due to the licensing fees, that they shut production. The West didn't have another game console until the NES. There is a great video about it somewhere, but I can't remember exactly what it was. Angry video game nerd maybe? There were other underlying causes like the console market being overcrowded, but E.T. really feels like it was the jump the shark moment that made everyone think that video games had peaked were a fad. We just had something like this here in the Netherlands. A lot of after-school daycares used to use what they call the stint. It's an electronically driven tub, where you can store like a dozen of kids and safely transport them from school to the daycare facility. A couple of months ago there was this terrible accident where such a stint vehicle had a technical error where the brakes didn't work and it drove right into an upcoming train. About a dozen of children and I believe also the caretaker was killed. Within the next 2 weeks our Minister of Transport decided to take all the stints off the road. Daycares were forbidden to use them pending the investigation. Most of the daycares were not happy with that decision as they had no other means of transporting the children safely without them having a big financial setback for hiring vans or having to walk with the children, which took so much more time and was also not super safe. The decision was made public, overnight, no transition time or regulation of some sort. The accident was of course terrible, but none of the other stints in use had ever had severe malfunctions. Last week, about 3 months after the accident, the company making the stints had to file for bankruptcy. I think it is absolutely irresponsible of our minister to just forbid such a useful transportation method and ruin a complete company. About a dozen of children and I believe also the caretaker was killed. 4 children died. A 5th child and the caretaker were severely injured. In the 1960s, people typed things on typewriters. If you needed a copy, you put a piece of black waxed paper behind the paper you were typing on, and another piece of paper behind that one, and it caused the typewriter to press the black wax onto the second sheet of paper, so you got a copy. Xerox came out with a copy machine, but they looked too complicated so no one bought them. Xerox ran a TV ad showing a 6-year-old making a copy, and that was the end for what was known as carbon paper. Google Maps releasing for free on cell phones killed the GPS market. Like killed it to the point where it's weird to see someone using a GPS these days. Standalone GPS units are still very much alive. The industry has shifted focus to the outdoor sector instead. Not an industry, but Nirvana killed 80s hair metal with Smells Like Teen Spirit. That was a pretty significant and quick shift in paradigm. I listen to Eddie Trunk. He often comments on how quick the shift was. Careers were ended overnight. Legend tells of a site older than Reddit. Its progenitor, one might say. Its redesign killed it in a matter of days. Its name was Digg. We do not say his name. To speak of him is to invoke his presence, and with it an unholy wrath. The moment that Blockbuster passed on buying Netflix, just like that, they signed the death warrant the home rental industry. They could have dominated the home entertainment market for another generation or two, and Netflix would be remembered in the same breath as Airborne's World or MySpace. Napster killed retail music stores. It may have taken a few years and Napster itself got taken out before it fully happened, but they started the whole process. Apple and iTunes finished the job. Probably not what you were expecting from this thread, but Jamie Oliver, a chef in the UK, killed my aunt and uncle's ice cream van business almost overnight. My aunt and uncle had a fleet of ice cream vans which for years used to park up outside schools in the UK and sell ice cream along with crisps, pop sweets, etc. every day of term time, lunch and after school. They would even pay the schools so they could park outside. Then Jamie Oliver did a large promotion in schools of healthy eating, and after that the schools said they couldn't sell unhealthy snacks to their kids anymore. At one point they were making £2k, £3k daily. Now they have a couple of vans which go out over the summer. Not necessarily an industry, but when I worked at Sears a long time ago, I was in Chicago for meetings. I had a chance meeting with CEO Eddie Lampert. I said to him that he should really look into selling everything we carry online, as that is where the future is heading. He smiled and said, "Okay kid, we'll have someone look into it." I also got written up twice for buying crap we had on X status clearance and selling it on eBay for nearly regular price. Gerald Ratner was head of a major UK jewelry company. During a speech he said, "People say, how can you sell this for such a low price? I say, because it's total crap." His company quickly dropped in value by over €500 million and he was fired. That didn't kill the industry. That company now owns K's and Jed's. Don't know if it counts, but the comedy series Bo Selector killed the career of R&B garage artist Craig David. He was huge in the UK and some other parts of the world, and was gaining traction in the US, until the show came out and had a deformed, pathetic version of him as one of the main characters. Nobody could take him seriously afterwards, especially as the main joke was about how he pee himself constantly. I read interviews with him since where he said that before the show, women would shout "I love you, Craig" at him in the street, and afterwards they'd shout "You pee yourself today?" A short while ago, in the 4th of September, children below the age of 11 died in a terrible collision with a train on an unguarded crossover. The accident happened with the famous Dutch backfeeds cargo bike. It was a model which was powered by a sort of Segway instead of the usual bicycle version, and made by the compact stint. Bystanders of the accident said that the brakes on the electronic cargo bike were not working. Only one of the children and their driver survived, but were badly wounded. Immediately a lot of daycare organizations stopped using the stint bike, until further research for the cause of the accident was done. In the beginning of October, a minister banned the stints from the roads. Her decision was based on the research done in the 10 days after the accident, but would stand until the rest of the research was finished, which could take several more months. Ever since the accident, nobody has bought a stint from the manufacturer, and the productions have stopped. No money came into the company anymore, so at the end of October the owner was forced to file for bankruptcy. The company accused the minister of being a bit rash with her ban, because the actual cause of the accident was still unknown. But the minister insisted on waiting for the results before reviewing her decision, even though the company could not afford that time without income. There used to be a whole lot of people that earned a very good living programming in AS3 for Flash web games and advertising. Then when Steve Jobs said Flash would never be allowed to work on the iPhone, that was it. Flash was dead and a lot of small game companies went out of business. I don't fault Steve Jobs for it though. As usual, he was right in his thinking, but he was also an butthole about it. Flash was a messy, insecure nightmare. It deserved to die painfully. If you are new to the channel, you can subscribe. I publish new videos every day. Until then, check another video. Bye for now.